The rain fell over uptown Dallas in steady sheets, turning the city lights into streaks of gold and red. Jasmine Rivers sat on her small balcony, wrapped in a faded blanket, her hands clutching a mug of cold coffee. She had stopped expecting life to give her anything good. Her parents were gone, her job vanished, and her once bright future felt like smoke slipping through her fingers. Even love, the one thing she had held onto, seemed like a distant dream. Inside the apartment, her phone buzzed. A message from Richard. "Thinking of you. Can I come by?" Jasmine stared at the screen and felt a mix of longing and dread. She loved him, yes, but how could she let herself be happy when every corner of her life screamed loss? Still, her fingers hovered over the reply button. She typed, deleted, then finally sent, "Okay." Richard Hale, the 30-year-old billionaire heir, was driving through the rain in his black luxury sedan. His mind was a storm of its own. He had seen Jasmine retreat into herself, watched as the bright, joyful woman he loved slowly disappeared under layers of grief. He didn't just want to see her, he wanted to fix her, to show her that her dreams, even the one about marrying him, could still come true. He clenched his jaw, determination stealing his nerves. Tonight he would start. When he arrived, Jasmine barely looked up. She was seated on the couch, curled into herself, eyes red from crying earlier. Richard stepped in quietly, holding a bouquet of lilies, her favorite flowers. He placed them on the coffee table and watched her from a few feet away, unsure if she would even notice. "Jasmine," he said softly. She flinched at the sound of his voice, a mixture of irritation and longing flickering across her face. I wanted to see you." She looked at him, her eyes clouded with sorrow. "Richard, I don't know if I can do this anymore," she whispered. It wasn't just about them. It was life itself weighing her down. Richard felt his heart tighten. He took a step closer, sitting gently beside her, careful not to overwhelm her. "You don't have to do it alone," he murmured. "I'm here. I want to be here for everything." His hand hovered over hers, waiting for permission. She didn't pull away. She just let him be there. Jasmine's thoughts wandered to her parents, the warm laughter of her father, the soft encouragement of her mother. She had lost them both within a year, leaving a void that no amount of money or love could easily fill. But seeing Richard there, steady and patient, she felt a tiny flicker of hope she hadn't felt in months. "You really think things could get better?" she asked quietly, voice trembling. Richard smiled faintly, a mix of sadness and determination in his eyes. "Not just better. I want to make your biggest wish come true. Even if it takes everything I have, even if life keeps testing us, I'll get you there." For a long moment, silence filled the room. The rain outside continued its rhythmic tapping, a soundtrack to the quiet storm inside Jasmine's heart. She wasn't sure if she was ready to trust happiness again, but Richard's presence reminded her of one undeniable truth. She wasn't alone. "Finally," she whispered, almost to herself, I just wish I could marry you before life takes anything else from me." Her words trembled like fragile glass. Richard's eyes softened, and without saying a word, he leaned in and kissed her forehead. A silent promise. That night, the city of Dallas seemed quieter than usual, as if it, too, understood the gravity of Jasmine's sorrow and Richard's resolve. The couple sat together, talking in fragments, holding each other close. Outside, storms raged, but inside, there was warmth, there was hope, and there was a promise that the path forward, no matter how rocky, would not be walked alone. Richard didn't know how he would do it yet, how he would fulfill Jasmine's one fragile wish, but he was certain of one thing: he would try until the very end. And somehow, against the odds, he would succeed. The morning sun cut through the gray Dallas clouds, casting a soft light across Jasmine's apartment. She sat at the small kitchen table, tracing the rim of her coffee cup absent-mindedly. The flowers Richard had left the night before were still fresh, a gentle reminder that someone cared, that someone believed in her. Her mind drifted back to happier times, to a memory that refused to let go. It had been 6 years since she first met Richard at the Dallas Art Gallery. She had been there alone, admiring a painting of a stormy sea, lost in thought. Richard had approached her casually, a charming smile that lit up the room. "I see someone else appreciates chaos in art," he'd said. Jasmine had laughed, feeling a spark she hadn't felt in years. That spark had grown into a fire, burning quietly even through life's darkest storms. Richard's memory of that moment was vivid, too. He remembered how her eyes, bright, curious, alive, pulled him in. There was something fragile yet bold about her, a depth that drew him in instantly. In that first conversation, he realized that he didn't just want to know her, he wanted to protect her from the world, to make her happy no matter the cost. Jasmine shook herself slightly, returning to the present. Her reflection in the window revealed a woman changed by grief. The vibrant woman from the gallery was now quiet, withdrawn, and hesitant to believe in love or joy. And yet, the memory of Richard's kindness, his unwavering presence, nudged her toward hope. Across town, Richard was pacing his penthouse, the city sprawling beneath him. He thought about Jasmine constantly, her laughter, her warmth, the way her hand felt in his. He couldn't stop thinking about the woman she had been and the woman she could be again. Every text, every missed call, every tear she hid, he carried in his chest like a weight he willingly bore. He remembered one evening in particular, a quiet dinner at a rooftop restaurant. The city twinkled below them, lights like stars in their own universe. Jasmine had nervously laughed as a candle flickered between them. "I don't know if I deserve this," she had whispered. Richard had reached across the table, holding her hand. "Deserve has nothing to do with it," he'd said. "I choose you. Every day." Now, after so much loss, she clung to these memories like lifelines. Her friends noticed the change. Sophia Bennett, her best friend, had spent countless hours trying to pull Jasmine out of her dark spiral. "Richard loves you," Sophia said one afternoon as they walked through Clyde Warren Park. "He's not going anywhere. You need to let him in again." Jasmine had nodded but felt unsure. Trusting happiness after grief was like walking a tightrope over a stormy sea. That evening, Richard sent her a message with a video of the first gallery visit they shared, him teasing her about the stormy sea painting. Jasmine laughed softly, a sound she hadn't made in weeks. The memory stirred warmth in her chest and a quiet longing. Maybe life could still offer joy. She typed back, "I remember. That day was perfect." Richard smiled when he read her reply. That small acknowledgement, that flicker of connection, was all the proof he needed. He knew the journey ahead would be fraught with pain and setbacks, but the spark was there. Jasmine's spark. And he was determined to fan it into a flame, no matter what it took. The night grew darker, the city quiet except for distant traffic. Jasmine curled up with her blanket again, thinking of Richard, of the laughter and warmth that had once filled their lives. Maybe, she thought cautiously, life could be more than loss. Maybe, just maybe, she could allow herself to believe in love again. Richard, miles away, stared out at the same Dallas skyline, a storm in his mind mirroring hers. He didn't yet know how he would make her last wish come true, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would try, and he would not stop until he saw her smile again. Jasmine woke to a gray, overcast morning, the kind that made the city of Dallas feel heavy and muted. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The bright, confident woman she once was seemed like a stranger now. Her hair hung limp around her shoulders, her eyes tired and hollow. Even the simple act of getting dressed felt exhausting. The weight of loss, her parents, her job, her sense of purpose, pressed down on her like an invisible storm cloud. Her phone buzzed. Another rejection email from a potential employer. She sighed, throwing it onto the bed. How could she keep trying when every door seemed to slam shut? Her parents had always believed in her, her father with his kind words, her mother with gentle encouragement. Now they were gone, and no amount of money or luck could fill the void. Sophia, her ever-supportive friend, arrived with her usual optimism and a touch of frustration. Jasmine, You can't let life win, she said, sitting beside her on the couch. I know it feels like everything's falling apart, but you've survived worse. And Richard, he's not going anywhere. Jasmine looked at Sophia, her eyes wet but guarded. I don't know if I can believe that anymore, she whispered. Later that day, Jasmine walked through Clyde Warren Park, the crisp air doing little to lift her mood. Children played, couples strolled hand in hand, and the city thrummed with life. Yet she felt apart from it all. Memories of her parents flooded her mind, their absence now a sharp ache instead of a dull sorrow. She paused by a fountain, watching the water ripple, and wondered if she would ever feel happiness again. Meanwhile, Richard was busy orchestrating small ways to reconnect with her. He had asked Elena, his assistant, to discreetly help plan gestures that might lift Jasmine's spirits. A bouquet here, a note there, even sending reminders of their happiest memories. Every action was calculated but heartfelt. He wanted her to remember that life, despite its cruelty, still held beauty, and that he would be by her side no matter what. That evening, Jasmine returned to her apartment, dragging herself through the doorway like a shadow of her former self. She sank onto the couch, picking up one of the lilies Richard had left. The fragrance reminded her of simpler times, and for a brief moment, a tear slid down her cheek, not just from sadness, but from longing. The love Richard offered was constant, unwavering, yet she still doubted whether she deserved it. She remembered the last time she had felt truly alive, a spontaneous evening at a Dallas rooftop with Richard, where they had danced under fairy lights with the skyline stretching beneath them. That night had been magical, a memory she clung to like a lifeline. And yet now, even the thought of joy seemed impossible, drowned beneath months of grief and isolation. Unable to sleep, Jasmine found herself scrolling through old photos of her parents and Richard. The images were bittersweet reminders of love lost and love still present. She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling a hollow ache. How could she reconcile the pain of loss with the hope of love? Her heart wanted to trust, but fear held it hostage. Richard called that night. Hearing his voice brought a warmth she hadn't felt in weeks, but it also reminded her of what she feared most, being happy only to lose it again. She listened as he spoke softly, asking about her day, sharing small anecdotes from his life. His patience and genuine care were almost unbearable in their intensity. Yet beneath the sadness, a fragile spark of hope flickered, unsteady but alive. As the night deepened, Jasmine realized she couldn't face tomorrow alone. Maybe she didn't have to. The storm inside her heart was fierce, but Richard's presence, steady, unwavering, unrelenting, offered a lifeline. A silent promise formed between them. He would not abandon her, and she might, just might, allow herself to hope again. Richard sat in his Dallas penthouse office, the city sprawling endlessly below him. Rain streaked the windows, but inside, the room glowed with warm, purposeful light. He tapped his fingers on the mahogany desk, thinking. Jasmine's smile had been absent for too long, buried under grief and life's relentless storms. He couldn't just wait for her to recover on her own. He had to take action. Tonight, he would start shaping a plan to fulfill her greatest wish, marrying him despite the obstacles. Elena Thompson, his personal assistant, entered carrying a sleek black tablet. "You've been at it for hours," she said gently. "Maybe you should rest." Richard shook his head.
No.
Jasmine needs me. I can't wait any longer. I need to plan every detail. Her happiness, her healing, her life with me. I need a timeline. Elena nodded, accustomed to his obsessive determination. He laid out a notebook filled with sketches, notes, and photos of Jasmine, her favorite flowers, restaurants she loved, and memories from their gallery visits. "We start small," he explained. "Gestures that remind her she's loved. Then we guide her back to hope. And finally, the wedding. Every step calculated, every moment meaningful." Elena leaned in, impressed despite herself. "You really mean it, don't you?" Richard's gaze softened. "I've never been more serious in my life." The first step, Richard decided, was emotional reconnection. Not extravagant gestures, something intimate. Letters, small surprises, reminders of happier memories. He wanted Jasmine to feel his love in every corner of her world, to see that life still held moments worth smiling for. His billionaire resources made logistics easy, but the challenge was emotional, breaking through her walls without overwhelming her. Next, he planned strategic experiences. A weekend retreat to a quiet lakeside, recreating one of their happiest memories, would be the first big step toward restoring trust and joy. He instructed Elena to handle the bookings discreetly. No hints, no surprises that feel forced, he said. Everything must feel natural, like it's meant for her. Elena jotted notes quickly, impressed with his precision and devotion. Richard also considered the emotional support Jasmine needed. Therapy sessions were crucial. He discreetly coordinated with Dr. Morgan Ellis to ensure Jasmine had access to professional guidance without feeling pressured. His goal wasn't just to plan her wedding, it was to help her heal, step by step, so that when the day came, she could truly say yes, heart fully intact. He spent hours reviewing Jasmine's life in minute detail. Her favorite parks, her coffee orders, even small personal quirks, her love for watercolor paintings, her habit of tapping pens when deep in thought. Every observation was a thread he could use to weave a tapestry of love that would surround her and make her feel safe, cherished, and, eventually, ready to say yes. Finally, Richard took a moment to reflect. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and gazed out at the rainy Dallas skyline. Planning a life for someone else's happiness was a daunting task. The emotional stakes were higher than any business deal he had ever made. But he was determined. Jasmine's last wish would not remain a wish. He would find a way to make it a reality. And if life threw storms at them, he would face them head-on, unwavering. As night fell over Dallas, Richard outlined the first phase, small gestures to rebuild trust and joy. A handwritten letter, a favorite book left on her couch, flowers delivered with notes that spoke directly to her heart. Each action would remind her she was loved, seen, and valued. He knew this was only the beginning. The emotional journey would be long and fragile, but he had one advantage: relentless love and determination. Jasmine's last wish, the dream of marrying him, was no longer a distant hope. It was a mission, and he would stop at nothing to see it fulfilled. The following morning, Jasmine awoke to the soft buzz of her phone. A delivery notification popped up, a small bouquet of her favorite lilies, accompanied by a handwritten note. For the woman who lights my world, even when clouds gather. She held the note in her trembling hands, unsure whether to smile or cry. The simplicity of it struck her, a reminder that someone was thinking of her, loving her, without demanding anything in return. Curious and cautious, she walked over to the coffee table where Richard had placed another note yesterday. This one was a small poem, a reflection of a memory they shared at the art gallery. She read it aloud softly, her voice trembling. Each word felt like a lifeline, pulling her gently from the depths of her grief. She realized, with a mix of fear and hope, that maybe she didn't have to face life alone. Richard, miles away in his penthouse, watched the delivery confirmation pop up on his phone. A smile tugged at his lips. Each small step, each acknowledgement from Jasmine, was a victory. He knew it wasn't enough to heal all at once. Grief and depression weren't solved with flowers, but it was the first thread in the web he was carefully weaving to bring her back to life. Later that day, Jasmine found a small package waiting outside her door. She opened it to discover a beautifully wrapped journal with her name embossed in gold. Inside, the first page bore another note. Write your dreams here. I'll wait to make them real. Her heart fluttered, a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. Could she really start dreaming again? Could life hold joy after so much sorrow? Sophia arrived later, sensing the change in Jasmine's mood. Look at you, she said, smiling. A little spark, huh? Jasmine nodded, holding the journal close. It's strange. I feel like maybe, just maybe, I can start to hope again. Sophia gave her a warm hug. That's the first step. You're opening the door. That evening, Richard decided to escalate his plan. He sent Jasmine a video message revisiting their first gallery experience. In it, he gently reminded her of the laughter, the excitement, the tiny sparks of joy they had shared. Jasmine watched the video alone, laughing softly despite herself, tears mingling with her smile. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of warmth. Richard's next move was more personal. He arranged for a quiet dinner at her favorite Dallas restaurant, just the two of them. He coordinated with the staff to ensure everything was seamless, from her favorite table to the music playing softly in the background. The goal was simple: let her feel seen, loved, and safe. When Jasmine arrived, she hesitated at first. But seeing the thoughtfulness of the setup, the table set with lilies, the soft music playing, Richard waiting with a warm smile, her defenses slowly melted. They talked, laughed softly, and for a few precious hours, the weight of the world seemed to lift. She allowed herself to be present in the moment, a small but significant step toward healing. After dinner, they walked through a quiet Dallas street, the city lights reflecting in puddles from earlier rain. Richard stopped, gently taking her hands in his. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. "I'll be here for every step, every tear, every smile. You don't have to do this alone." Jasmine looked into his eyes, feeling a fragile trust blooming inside her. For the first time in months, she believed in the possibility of happiness again. That night, Jasmine returned to her apartment holding the journal Richard had gifted her. She opened it and began to write, a single line, a simple hope. "I want to live, to laugh, to love again." It was small, fragile, yet powerful. It marked the first real step toward healing. And somewhere across the city, Richard watched her progress in quiet anticipation, ready to guide her toward the ultimate fulfillment of her wish. Jasmine woke to another gray morning in Dallas, a lingering drizzle tapping against her apartment window. For a brief moment, she felt a flicker of hope. Richard's gestures, their shared laughter, the journal she had begun writing in, it all seemed like a fragile bridge back to happiness. But life, she was learning, had a cruel habit of testing even the strongest hearts. Her phone buzzed. A message from her cousin appeared. "I'm so sorry to tell you. Uncle James passed away last night. Funeral arrangements are tomorrow." Jasmine froze, the words piercing her chest like shards of ice. Uncle James had been a constant source of support after her parents died. The grief she thought she had begun to manage now surged back, raw and relentless. The day blurred. She barely ate, barely spoke. The world felt heavy, suffocating. Memories of Richard's care and the small steps toward hope seemed distant, almost impossible to reach. She sank onto her couch, clutching a pillow, unable to stop the tears from flowing. Each breath was a struggle. Each moment felt like another reminder of everything she had lost. Richard called several times, leaving gentle messages. "I'm here. I'll come over if you need me. You don't have to face this alone." She wanted to answer, to reach out, but the grief was suffocating, an invisible wall separating her from hope. The storm inside her mind was relentless, threatening to undo all the progress they had made together. Sophia came over later that afternoon, sensing something was terribly wrong. She found Jasmine slumped on the floor, photo albums scattered around her. "It's okay to cry," Sophia whispered, kneeling beside her. "You're allowed to grieve, but you're not alone. Richard, he cares. Let him help you." Jasmine shook her head weakly, tears falling faster. "I don't know if I can, not this time." Richard arrived shortly after, careful not to intrude, but desperate to be near her. He knelt beside her, placing a hand over hers. "Jasmine, I know it hurts. I can't take this pain away, but I can be here. I won't leave. Please, let me stay with you through this." She looked at him, her eyes swollen from crying, torn between pushing him away and allowing the comfort he offered. Slowly, she let him sit beside her. That evening, they went to the funeral together. Jasmine clung to Richard's arm, feeling the weight of grief pressing down but also a small sense of security. Each memory of Uncle James, each tear shed, was now shared. Richard remained quiet, offering strength without words, proving that love was not only in joy, it was in endurance, in presence, in unwavering support. After the ceremony, back in her apartment, Jasmine collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. Richard handed her a blanket and sat close, not speaking, just letting her cry into his shoulder. In the quiet, she realized that healing wasn't a straight path. It was jagged, unpredictable, full of setbacks. But Richard's unwavering presence reminded her that even in tragedy, she wasn't alone. That night, Jasmine picked up the journal Richard had given her and wrote a single sentence. "Even in the storm, I am not alone." It was a small step, a fragile acknowledgement of hope amidst despair. Richard watched from across the room, silent but resolute. The storm had arrived, but their bond had not broken. And as the rain continued to fall outside, he promised himself silently, no matter how many storms came, he would see Jasmine's wish fulfilled. A few days after the funeral, Jasmine woke to the faint glow of morning sunlight filtering through her blinds. The apartment felt quieter, calmer. The weight of grief still lingered, but something had shifted. Richard's constant presence, his patience and understanding, had begun to plant a seed of hope in her heart. Today, she realized, might be the day she allowed herself a little joy. Richard arrived unannounced, a gentle smile on his face. In his hands was a small, unassuming package. "Good morning," he said softly. "I thought you might like this." Jasmine looked at him, curious yet wary, and opened the package to find a set of watercolor paints and brushes. She had always loved painting but had abandoned it after her parents passed. Jasmine ran her fingers over the colors, a spark of memory stirring inside her. I haven't painted in years," she admitted, her voice trembling with a mix of hesitation and excitement. Richard knelt beside her, his gaze encouraging. "Then, let's start today. No pressure. Just you and the colors." It was a simple gesture, but it carried immense meaning, a reminder that joy could still exist, even in small doses. They set up a small corner of the living room with water jars, brushes, and blank sheets of paper. Jasmine's first strokes were hesitant, uncertain, as if she feared failing at happiness. Richard painted alongside her, not to compete but to encourage, to show her that mistakes were part of the process and that life, too, could be messy yet beautiful. Hours passed unnoticed. Jasmine's laughter returned, soft but genuine, filling the apartment with a sound Richard had longed to hear. He watched her rediscover a piece of herself she thought lost forever. For the first time in months, she looked at him and smiled freely, without fear, without pain clouding her eyes. After a quiet lunch, Richard suggested a walk through Clyde Warren Park. The city was alive with movement, children playing, couples strolling, street musicians performing. Jasmine walked beside him, her hand brushing his occasionally. Each step felt lighter, less burdened, as if the small moments of joy were beginning to outweigh the lingering grief. They stopped by a small fountain where they had spent hours together years ago, reminiscing about lighter times. Richard handed Jasmine a small notebook, one she hadn't seen before. "I thought you might like to capture little moments, memories, hopes, things that make you happy," he said. Jasmine's eyes glistened. It wasn't just a gift, it was a symbolic bridge back to hope. That night, back in her apartment, Jasmine painted by the window, the city lights twinkling around her. She wrote in the notebook, "Today, I remembered how to smile. Today, I remembered joy." The act of creating, of living in the present, had rekindled a spark that grief had nearly extinguished. Richard watched silently, a quiet pride in his heart, knowing that each small step brought them closer to her ultimate wish. Before leaving, Richard kissed her forehead gently. "Tomorrow, we take another step," he whispered. Jasmine nodded, a soft, hopeful smile on her lips. The storm was not gone, but the spark had returned, a fragile, glowing reminder that life could still hold beauty, love, and possibility. The next morning, sunlight poured through Jasmine's apartment, casting golden streaks across her bedroom. She stretched lazily, a soft smile on her lips. For the first time in weeks, she felt light, like the grief that had weighed her down was lifting, if only slightly. Her journal lay open on the bedside table, filled with little victories and moments of joy from the past few days. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Richard, holding a small, elegantly wrapped box. "Good morning," he said, his smile gentle but full of anticipation. "I wanted to give you something, a promise." Jasmine's heart fluttered. She had no idea what he meant, but the warmth in his gaze made her trust him before she even opened the box. Inside the box was a delicate bracelet, engraved with a single word: hope. Richard took her hand and held it gently. "This is a promise," he said softly. "A promise that no matter what storms come, I will be here. I will never leave you, and together, we will see your wish fulfilled." Jasmine's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were not just sorrow. They were gratitude, trust, and a fragile sense of joy. They spent the day together in the heart of Dallas, walking along the streets and sharing simple moments, coffee in their favorite cafe, laughter over shared memories, quiet conversations on a park bench. Each moment was a building block in the fragile foundation of trust and hope that Richard was carefully reconstructing in Jasmine's heart. During lunch, Richard finally broached the topic that had lingered in both their hearts for months. "Jasmine, I know life has been hard, and you've lost so much," he began gently. "But I need to ask something important. Will you consider spending your life with me? Not just now, but marriage? When you're ready?" Jasmine froze, her heart pounding. She had dreamed of this moment, yet fear and grief made it almost impossible to respond. Jasmine looked into his eyes, seeing unwavering love and patience. The memories of the gallery, the painting sessions, the quiet nights together, they all surged through her mind. She felt the weight of grief, but beneath it, a spark of courage. I want to," she whispered, voice trembling. "I'm just scared." Richard smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I know, and that's why I'll be here every step of the way." That evening, Richard led her to the rooftop of his penthouse. The city lights twinkled below, creating a private universe just for them. He slipped the hope bracelet onto her wrist and held her close. "This is the first promise," he said softly. "A promise that one day, when you're ready, I'll make every other promise come true, including the one about us being married." Jasmine leaned into him, feeling the weight of her fear lift slightly, replaced by trust and love. For the first time in months, Jasmine allowed herself to imagine a future, a life with Richard, full of love, joy, and hope. She knew there would still be storms ahead, setbacks and grief, but with Richard by her side, she felt capable of facing them. The bracelet on her wrist was more than jewelry. It was a symbol of a promise, a spark of hope that could grow into a lifetime of love. That night, as they sat together overlooking Dallas, Jasmine whispered softly, "Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't." Richard held her close, kissing her forehead. "Always," he murmured. "And I'll keep believing until the day your wish comes true." For the first time, Jasmine felt that the impossible might just be possible, and that she had someone willing to walk every step with her, no matter how difficult the journey. The next morning, Dallas was bathed in sunlight, the city alive with movement and color. Jasmine woke with a sense of cautious anticipation. Richard had promised her a day to remember, a chance to leave behind grief, even if just for a few hours, and embrace life again. She felt a nervous flutter in her chest, like the first heartbeat of a hope she had almost forgotten. Richard arrived with a small picnic basket and a mischievous smile. "Today," he said, "we're going to reclaim a little happiness. No schedules, no pressures, just laughter, fun, and memories to hold on to." Jasmine hesitated, then smiled faintly, allowing herself to trust him. The first step toward joy, she realized, was giving herself permission to feel it. They drove to White Rock Lake, a place Jasmine had loved as a child but hadn't visited since losing her parents. The sun danced on the water's surface, reflecting the sky in a dazzling display. Richard spread out a blanket and handed her a small kite. "Let's fly this," he said. "You can let it soar, just like today. Jasmine laughed softly for the first time in months, the sound light and unrestrained. As the kite climbed into the sky, Jasmine felt a strange sense of freedom. Each tug of the string, each gust of wind lifting the kite, reminded her that even grief couldn't hold her down forever. Richard watched her, a smile tugging at his lips. In that moment, he realized that healing wasn't about erasing pain. It was about creating moments of light that could pierce the darkness. Afterward, they wandered along the lakeside trail, talking about small things. Favorite childhood memories, books they wanted to read, places they hoped to visit together. The conversation was light, playful, and healing. Each word, each laugh, was a brick in the foundation Richard was helping her rebuild, a life filled with joy, even amid sorrow. At midday, Richard led her to a small cafe on the edge of the lake. They sat outside, enjoying sandwiches and iced tea while watching boats glide across the water. Jasmine realized that she had almost forgotten how simple pleasures could feel so meaningful. Richard reached across the table, taking her hand gently. "Life can be this beautiful," he said. "You just have to let yourself see it." Later, they rented a small rowboat. Jasmine hesitated at first, unsure if she could trust herself on the water. Richard reassured her with a calm smile. Slowly, they paddled out into the middle of the lake, the city's skyline glimmering behind them. For a while, neither spoke, letting the rhythm of the water and the gentle breeze fill the silence. Jasmine felt a peace she hadn't known in months, a calm that whispered, "You can be happy again." As the sun began to set, painting the sky with oranges and pinks, Richard pulled out a small camera. "Let's capture this moment," he said. Jasmine laughed, letting herself pose and smile freely. In that instant, she realized how much she had missed feeling alive, not just surviving, but truly living. Each photograph, each laugh, was a reminder that joy could exist, even after grief. On the drive back to Dallas, Jasmine rested her head on Richard's shoulder. She felt lighter, freer, and more connected to the world than she had in months. Richard glanced at her, heart swelling. Today had been about more than fun. It had been about reclaiming life, one small, joyful step at a time. And he knew that soon, these small steps would lead to the ultimate fulfillment of her last wish. That night, Jasmine wrote in her journal, "I laughed today. I felt alive again. Maybe happiness isn't gone forever." Richard read over her shoulder, smiling softly. The spark of joy was returning, fragile but undeniable. And as Dallas lights twinkled outside, both of them knew that this was just the beginning, the first real step toward rebuilding a life filled with love, trust, and hope. The next morning, Jasmine awoke to a golden Dallas sunrise streaming through her blinds. She stretched, a faint smile on her lips, feeling a lightness she hadn't experienced in months. After yesterday's laughter-filled day, something inside her had shifted. The walls around her heart, long fortified by grief and fear, now had cracks, just enough for hope to seep through. Richard arrived at her apartment, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. "Morning," he said, his eyes bright with anticipation. "Thought we could continue where we left off. Little joys, little moments." Jasmine laughed softly, her voice like music after months of silence. "I think I'm ready," she whispered, heart fluttering with the courage to embrace life again. They began the day with a stroll through the Dallas Arts District, visiting a small gallery with vibrant contemporary art. Jasmine's eyes sparkled with curiosity, a sensation she hadn't felt in ages. Richard watched her quietly, noting each small gesture of interest, the way her fingers traced the frame of a painting, the subtle smile as she admired a sculpture. Each movement was a piece of her heart reopening. During lunch at a nearby cafe, Richard gently held her hand across the table. "I see you coming back," he said softly, "piece by piece. And I'll be here, for every moment." Jasmine looked into his eyes, feeling a wave of trust and warmth. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to believe that love could coexist with grief, that joy could live alongside pain. Afterward, Richard suggested they try something spontaneous, a rooftop swing at a small park he had discovered. Jasmine hesitated, but the glint of mischief in Richard's eyes encouraged her. As they swung high, the wind in her hair and the city below, she laughed, a full, free laugh that seemed to chase away months of sorrow. Richard laughed beside her, feeling relief and joy. As they walked back toward the car, Jasmine admitted softly, "I haven't felt this alive in so long. Thank you for giving me a chance to remember who I am." Richard stopped and gently lifted her hands. "You're not just remembering who you are, you're discovering who you want to be. And I'll be here, every step of the way." The sincerity in his voice made her chest ache with emotion, a mix of hope, love, and trust. That evening, they returned to her apartment, settling on the couch with warm tea. Jasmine picked up the journal Richard had given her and began to write freely, no rules, no hesitations. Words flowed from her heart, memories, hopes, fears, and dreams, all mingling with the spark of renewed life inside her. Richard watched quietly, proud that she was reclaiming her voice and emotions. Before leaving, Richard gently cupped her face. "You're ready," he whispered. Jasmine looked up, her eyes glistening. "Ready for what?" she asked softly. "For us," he replied. "For everything we've dreamed of. For love. For life. And for the day we make your last wish come true." Jasmine nodded, her heart pounding, not with fear, but with anticipation and trust. That night, Jasmine wrote in her journal, "Today I laughed, I felt alive, I trusted again. Maybe my heart isn't broken, it's just waiting to love fully once more." Richard read over her shoulder, smiling softly. The journey was far from over, but her heart had begun to reopen, one tender, joyful moment at a time. Richard sat in his Dallas penthouse office late at night, city lights stretching endlessly beneath him. The rain tapped softly against the floor-to-ceiling windows as he meticulously reviewed his plan. He wanted this proposal to be perfect, not flashy, not rushed, but a moment that would honor Jasmine's journey, her heart, and the love that had grown through pain, trust, and patience. Elena, his assistant, hovered quietly, noticing the intensity in his gaze. "You're planning something huge, aren't you?" she asked. Richard nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Not huge. Meaningful. She's been through so much, this has to be right." Elena watched him thoughtfully. She had seen him orchestrate business deals with ease, but this was different. It was personal, delicate, and filled with heart. Richard began sketching the evening in detail, a rooftop dinner under fairy lights, Jasmine's favorite flowers scattered delicately around, soft music playing in the background, and a small keepsake, a locket engraved with the word, hope. Every element was chosen to symbolize their journey, love rebuilt through patience, trust, and small victories. He rehearsed the words he would speak, carefully balancing emotion and simplicity. "Jasmine, you've healed me as much as I've tried to heal you. I want to spend my life loving you, supporting you, and keeping every promise I've made. Will you marry me?" He repeated the words quietly to himself, testing the weight of each syllable, ensuring they carried sincerity, warmth, and a promise of forever. Next, he reached out to a select few, Sophia for support and insight into Jasmine's emotions, the restaurant staff for discreet assistance, and a violinist to provide soft, live music during the rooftop dinner. Every detail was coordinated with care, ensuring the moment would feel natural, intimate, and unforgettable. Days passed as Richard quietly prepared, each gesture unseen by Jasmine. Yet, he also focused on maintaining normalcy, gentle walks, small surprises, and heartfelt conversations, so that the proposal would not feel like a sudden event, but the culmination of their shared journey. Finally, the day arrived. Richard picked Jasmine up for what he described as a simple evening in Dallas. She noticed the unusual sparkle in his eyes, but didn't suspect the depth of what was planned. The anticipation hung in the air, subtle yet electric, as they drove through streets glowing with city lights reflecting in puddles from a light afternoon rain. Upon arriving at the rooftop, Jasmine gasped softly. fairy lights hung delicately, soft music filled the air, and roses were scattered like petals of memory across the deck. A small table with candles waited for them, and in the center, the locket glimmered under the warm glow. Her eyes welled up with emotion, overwhelmed by beauty, love, and the realization of how carefully Richard had planned everything. Richard took her hands gently. "Jasmine," he began, voice steady yet tender. "You've faced storms I couldn't imagine, yet you've come back, stronger and more beautiful than ever. You've allowed me to love you, to care for you, and to share every part of this journey with you. I want to spend the rest of my life making you feel loved every single day. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Jasmine's cheeks as she nodded, speechless yet full of love. "Yes, yes, Richard. I'll marry you," she whispered. He lifted her gently into an embrace, their hearts beating in sync, the city below witnessing a love that had weathered storms, grief, and uncertainty. This wasn't just a proposal, it was the fulfillment of a promise, a culmination of patience, care, and unwavering devotion. That night, as they sat under the stars on the rooftop, Jasmine held the hope locket close to her heart. "I never thought I could feel this way again," she whispered. Richard kissed her forehead softly. "And I'll keep reminding you every day that love, trust, and happiness are worth believing in." The engagement wasn't just a ring or a ceremony. It was a testament to survival, patience, and the triumph of love over life's storms. Dallas sparkled beneath the morning sun as Jasmine sat by her apartment window, a soft breeze brushing through the room. The engagement ring sparkled on her finger, catching the light with every movement of her hand. She traced the delicate band thoughtfully, reflecting on the journey that had led her here, from loss, grief, and loneliness to laughter, love, and hope. Sophia arrived, carrying a small box of handwritten notes. "For you," she said, smiling. "Things to remember, moments that brought you joy. Keep them close for tomorrow." Jasmine opened the box and felt tears well up. Each note recalled small victories, laughter-filled days, and moments of connection with Richard, the steps that had slowly rebuilt her heart. Richard called later that morning, his voice gentle but excited. "Are you ready for the final countdown?" he asked. Jasmine laughed softly, a mixture of nerves and excitement. "I think I am, but it still feels unreal," she admitted. Richard reassured her. "It's real, Jasmine. Every step we've taken has led to this moment. And I promise, tomorrow, everything will feel perfect." The afternoon was quiet, filled with small, personal rituals. Jasmine arranged her wedding dress carefully, smoothing out the delicate fabric and imagining how it would feel to walk down the aisle toward Richard. She practiced small breaths to calm her nerves, replaying moments from their journey together, letting the memories anchor her to love and hope. Meanwhile, Richard oversaw final arrangements at the rooftop venue. The fairy lights glimmered, flowers smelled fragrant and fresh, and the violinist rehearsed softly in the background. Every detail was perfect, yet he allowed space for spontaneity, trusting that the moment would flow naturally when Jasmine arrived. As evening approached, Jasmine sat with Sophia, reflecting on her transformation. "I can't believe how far I've come," she whispered. "From feeling broken and alone to this, ready to marry Richard." Sophia held her hand, smiling warmly. "You didn't just get here, you grew here. And tomorrow, you celebrate not just love, but your strength." Richard arrived at Jasmine's apartment just before sunset. He took her hand, leading her out for a short walk to calm pre-wedding nerves. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "everything we dreamed of comes true. But tonight, just breathe, enjoy this moment with me." Jasmine nodded, leaning into his side, feeling the calm before the storm of celebration. That night, they returned to the apartment, preparing for an early start. Jasmine placed her journal by the bedside and wrote a single line. "Tomorrow, I step forward not as someone healed, but as someone ready to embrace love fully." Richard kissed her forehead, holding her close. "And I'll be there every step," he whispered. For the first time, they both felt the perfect balance of anticipation and peace, the calm before the moment that would fulfill Jasmine's ultimate wish. The morning sunlight bathed Dallas in a golden glow, as if the city itself celebrated Jasmine and Richard's love. Jasmine woke early, her heart pounding with excitement and nerves. The engagement ring glimmered on her finger, and for the first time in months, she felt whole, ready to step forward into a new life. Sophia arrived with a small bag of essentials and a reassuring hug. "It's your day," she whispered. "Breathe. Smile. Let every moment wash over you." Jasmine nodded, feeling the calm confidence that had been rebuilt over months of healing. She allowed herself to truly savor the anticipation, knowing this day was not just about love, but triumph over grief and fear. Richard, meanwhile, oversaw the final touches on the rooftop. Fairy lights shimmered gently, rose petals lined the aisle, and the soft notes of the violin drifted through the evening air. Every detail had been chosen with care, a reflection of Jasmine's personality, journey, and the love they shared. When Jasmine arrived, the city skyline behind her, her dress flowing with elegance, Richard's breath caught. Time seemed to slow as he watched her approach, the culmination of months of love, patience, and healing visible in her radiant expression. The hardships of the past year, grief, loneliness, fear, felt like a distant memory, replaced with hope and fulfillment. Sophia gave her a final nod of encouragement as she stepped forward. Jasmine's eyes never left Richard's. In that gaze, she saw unwavering love, support, and the reflection of her own courage. The journey to this moment had been long and difficult, but it had forged a bond deeper than either of them could have imagined. Richard took her hands gently, his voice steady, but filled with emotion. "Jasmine, from the moment you let me into your life, I promise to stand by you, to share your joys and shoulder your sorrows. Today, I promise to love you endlessly in every season of life. Will you marry me?" Jasmine's eyes filled with tears, and she whispered, "Yes, yes, Richard, I will." They exchanged rings, the symbols of their love, trust, and promises, now tangible. Every touch, every glance, every word carried the weight of the journey they had shared, the losses, the laughter, the slow rebuilding of hope, and the unwavering presence of love. As they shared their first kiss as husband and wife, the city seemed to hold its breath. The violinist played softly, petals swirled gently in the evening breeze, and both of them felt a profound sense of completion. The last wish Jasmine had carried for years was finally fulfilled. That night, under a sky full of stars, Jasmine rested her head on Richard's shoulder. "I never thought I could feel this happy again," she whispered. Richard kissed her forehead gently. "And I'll remind you every day that love, hope, and joy are always worth believing in." For the first time, Jasmine knew that even life's harshest storms could lead to the most beautiful moments. The morning after the wedding, sunlight poured through the windows of Jasmine and Richard's new apartment in Dallas. Jasmine woke with a sense of lightness and contentment she hadn't felt in years. The ring on her finger sparkled in the morning light, a constant reminder that love and hope could be rebuilt, no matter how many storms life sent her way. Richard entered the room with 2 cups of coffee and a mischievous grin. "Good morning, Mrs. Hamilton," he said teasingly. Jasmine laughed, the sound light and free, a reflection of how far she had come. "Good morning, Mr. Hamilton," she replied, warmth and affection filling her tone. The first morning, as husband and wife, felt surreal, yet perfect in every small detail. Over breakfast, they talked about dreams for their future, traveling, starting small projects together, and continuing the little rituals that had helped Jasmine heal. Every plan felt alive with possibility, grounded in the reality of the love they had fought to build. Richard reached across the table, taking her hand. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. Jasmine squeezed his hand, knowing he was right. Later, they visited the Dallas Arboretum, walking among the blooming flowers and laughing like children again. Jasmine felt alive, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Each shared smile, each soft touch, reinforced the bond that had grown stronger with every challenge they had faced together. That afternoon, Richard surprised her with a small gift, a framed photo from their first gallery visit, a memory of the day she rediscovered joy through painting. Jasmine's eyes glistened. "You remembered this?" she asked softly. Richard smiled. "Every step of our journey matters. I want us to carry them all forward." The gift was more than a picture. It was a celebration of healing, growth, and love. They spent the evening in quiet comfort, reading and reflecting on their journey. Jasmine opened her journal, reading aloud passages from the months she had documented, the pain, the grief, the laughter, and the moments of hope. Richard listened, holding her hand and nodding, proud of the strength and resilience she had shown. As night fell, they stepped onto the balcony, overlooking the sparkling Dallas skyline. Jasmine rested her head on Richard's shoulder, taking in the quiet beauty of the city. "We made it," she whispered. "Through everything, we made it." Richard kissed the top of her head. "Yes," he replied softly. "And this is just the beginning of the life we'll build together." That night, Jasmine wrote her final words in the journal she had carried throughout her journey. "I survived the storms, I found love, and now I begin anew. My heart is whole, and my life is ours to shape." Richard read over her shoulder, holding her hand. Together, they embraced the promise of a future filled with love, hope, and infinite possibilities. A week after the wedding, Dallas woke to a brisk morning. Jasmine and Richard sat together at the breakfast table, sharing coffee and quiet conversation. Life after the wedding felt magical, but reality was creeping in: work responsibilities, family obligations, and everyday decisions. The couple realized that love was not only about joy, but also about navigating challenges as a team. Richard had a sudden business emergency that required his attention. Jasmine, initially worried, quickly offered her support. "You handle it. I'll be right here when you're done," she said softly. Richard squeezed her hand, grateful for her patience and understanding. Their marriage, he realized, was built not only on love but on trust, teamwork, and the ability to face life's pressures together. Later, Jasmine faced a minor personal setback, a canceled art exhibition she had been anticipating for months. Instead of retreating into despair as she once would have, she leaned on Richard. He encouraged her to see the silver lining. "This is just one moment. We'll create another opportunity, something even better." Jasmine smiled, the storm of disappointment softened by his unwavering support. Together, they spent the afternoon brainstorming ways to turn setbacks into opportunities. Richard suggested a private gallery night in their apartment, inviting close friends and family. Jasmine's eyes lit up. This was proof that challenges could be transformed into memorable experiences, and that together, they could face anything. That evening, Dallas glimmered as the city lights reflected their determination and renewed optimism. Jasmine hung a few of her favorite paintings on the apartment walls, while Richard helped arrange seating and decorations. The room radiated warmth, creativity, and love, the embodiment of their partnership and resilience. Friends arrived for the intimate gallery night, laughter and conversation filling the apartment. Jasmine felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude. She realized that life's challenges no longer had the power to paralyze her. The support of Richard and the love they shared gave her the strength to face obstacles with confidence. After everyone left, Jasmine and Richard sat together on the balcony, overlooking the glittering Dallas skyline. "We've faced so much already," Jasmine said softly, "and I feel ready for anything, as long as we're together." Richard wrapped an arm around her, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. "Exactly," he replied. "Life will always throw challenges our way, but we'll face them as one." Before bed, Jasmine wrote in her journal, "Life isn't always perfect, but with love, trust, and patience, every challenge becomes a step forward." Richard read over her shoulder, smiling proudly. Their first true test as a married couple had strengthened their bond, proving that together, they could face any storm. A few months into their marriage, Jasmine and Richard woke early to the soft glow of Dallas morning. The city felt alive, full of opportunities and adventures waiting to be embraced. Today was special, They had planned a small trip to celebrate their anniversary, a way to mark a milestone in the new chapter of their lives. Richard handed Jasmine a carefully wrapped box. "Happy anniversary," he said softly. Inside was a delicate charm bracelet, each charm representing a significant moment in their journey, from the day they met to the gallery visit and the first promise of hope he gave her. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. They began the day with a drive through Dallas, visiting their favorite spots, the cafe where they laughed over shared memories, the park where Jasmine first felt freedom after grief, and the art district that had reignited her creative passion. Each stop felt like a celebration of their love and the growth they had experienced together. During lunch, they talked about future goals. Jasmine shared ideas for a collaborative art project, while Richard spoke of expanding his philanthropy to support local artists. Every conversation was a reminder of how their dreams intertwined, how they could build a life together full of purpose, creativity, and love. Later, they visited White Rock Lake, where they had once flown a kite together. Jasmine carried a small sketchbook, capturing the moment in a drawing. Richard smiled, watching her recreate the memory. "We're building a lifetime of stories," he said. Jasmine nodded, feeling the full weight of how far they had come, how grief and despair had transformed into shared joy and accomplishment. As evening approached, Richard surprised her with a small rooftop dinner at their apartment, decorated with fairy lights and candles reminiscent of their engagement. The city lights glittered below, creating an intimate atmosphere. Jasmine felt a swell of love and gratitude, knowing that even simple moments could carry profound meaning when shared with the right person. Over dinner, they reminisced about the challenges they had overcome, the loneliness Jasmine had felt, the careful patience Richard had shown, and the moments of joy that had slowly rebuilt her heart. Each milestone became a memory, a story etched into the foundation of their shared life. Before ending the night, they stepped onto the balcony, holding hands as the Dallas skyline twinkled below. "Here's to many more milestones," Richard said softly. Jasmine rested her head on his shoulder, smiling. "And countless memories," she added. The city, the lights, the quiet intimacy, they were reminders that love was not only about grand gestures, but also the collection of small, meaningful moments. That night, Jasmine wrote in her journal, "Every milestone we reach is proof of our love and resilience. Together, we create memories that will last a lifetime." Richard read over her shoulder, holding her hand. They knew their journey was ongoing, but each step, each milestone, strengthened the love that had endured storms, loneliness, and uncertainty. Dallas woke to a crisp morning, but the calm of the city contrasted with the storm approaching Jasmine and Richard's lives. Richard received an urgent call from a business partner. An unforeseen financial crisis threatened one of his key ventures. Jasmine noticed the tension in his jaw and the subtle clench of his fists, a rare sign of vulnerability from the usually composed billionaire. Jasmine approached quietly, placing her hand on his arm. "We'll get through it," she said softly, her voice filled with calm conviction. Richard looked at her, a mixture of gratitude and worry in his eyes. He realized that this partnership, life and love intertwined, was more than just emotional. It was a source of strength, the kind that could weather storms and face challenges head-on. The next day, Richard was called to a high-stakes meeting. Jasmine accompanied him, offering moral support and insight. Her keen eye for detail and empathetic nature helped Richard navigate the tense discussion, suggesting creative solutions he might have overlooked. It was a stark reminder that marriage wasn't just about companionship, it was teamwork, facing challenges side by side. Meanwhile, Jasmine faced her own unexpected challenge. A former mentor questioned her dedication to art, doubting her potential as a professional artist. The criticism stung, but instead of retreating into doubt, Jasmine used it as fuel. She shared her concerns with Richard, who reminded her of the progress she had made and the resilience she had shown in reclaiming her life after loss. Together, they strategized, Richard addressing the business issue with calm efficiency, Jasmine preparing a portfolio of her best works to prove her mentor wrong. Each challenge highlighted the balance of their relationship, love intertwined with practical problem-solving, trust, and unwavering support. Later that evening, they walked along the Dallas riverfront, processing the day's events. Jasmine squeezed Richard's hand. "We're stronger than these challenges," she said. He smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride in their partnership. "Yes," he replied. "Together, we're unstoppable." The city lights reflected on the water like a promise. Life would always have storms, but their bond was unbreakable. By the end of the week, both challenges were beginning to resolve. The business venture stabilized thanks to Richard's leadership and Jasmine's advice, while Jasmine's mentor acknowledged the strength and vision of her art portfolio. The couple celebrated quietly at home, a glass of wine in hand, reflecting on the resilience they had cultivated together. Before bed, Jasmine wrote in her journal, "Challenges are inevitable, but love and trust make every storm manageable. Together, we are stronger than anything life throws at us." Richard read beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. They fell asleep knowing that while unexpected challenges would continue to arise, their partnership, rooted in love, trust, and mutual respect, was prepared to face anything. The morning sun cast golden light over Dallas, glinting off the glass towers and streets below. Jasmine stood on the balcony of their apartment, the breeze teasing her hair as she held the delicate charm bracelet Richard had given her months ago. Each charm told a story, a memory, a milestone, a step in her journey from loneliness to hope. Today, every story would converge into one perfect moment. Richard appeared beside her, his eyes shining with pride and love. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Jasmine nodded, feeling a mixture of anticipation and gratitude. This wasn't just a day for celebration. It was the culmination of everything they had endured: grief, hardship, rebuilding trust, and finding joy together. The couple arrived at the rooftop where months ago Richard had proposed. Fairy lights glimmered softly in the evening light, rose petals lined the path, and a small stage was set up for a live orchestra. Every detail reflected Jasmine's journey, delicate, intentional, and full of heart. Friends, family, and loved ones quietly gathered, witnessing the fulfillment of a dream long held close to her heart. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears as Richard took her hands. "Jasmine," he said, voice steady and full of love, "your last wish was simple: to marry me and to live a life filled with joy and meaning. Today, that wish becomes our reality, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime." The orchestra began to play softly as Jasmine walked forward, every step a reminder of the journey she had survived. She reached Richard, and together they faced the crowd, their smiles radiant, their hearts full. This was more than a wedding. It was the embodiment of hope, resilience, and love realized. They exchanged vows once more, but this time with the eyes of loved ones witnessing, their promises echoing into the night. Jasmine spoke of her journey, of heartbreak and healing, of rediscovering joy. Richard spoke of unwavering support, trust, and shared dreams. Every word resonated with sincerity, filling the rooftop with an energy that was palpable and unforgettable. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, the city below seemed to celebrate with them, the lights sparkling like stars, reflecting the love and fulfillment they had fought for. Jasmine's last wish had been granted, and in the process, they had created a life built on resilience, partnership, and unwavering love. After the ceremony, Jasmine whispered to Richard, "I never thought a wish could feel this real." Richard kissed her forehead. "And this is just the beginning. Every day, we'll keep building, dreaming, and living a life we imagine together." The night ended with laughter, music, and dancing under the stars, a life fully embraced, a dream fully realized. As the rooftop emptied and the city lights glimmered below, the camera would pull back to show Dallas in all its beauty, echoing the story of resilience, hope, and love realized. And in a voiceover, Jasmine's words lingered. "Life may test you. Love may challenge you. But hold on to your dreams. Believe in the impossible. And never give up on the wishes your heart whispers." If Jasmine's journey has touched your heart, Take a moment now. Share this story with someone who needs hope. Comment below, what's your last wish? And remember, every storm can lead to the most beautiful fulfillment if you hold on to love and never let go.